following program are pre-recorded.
Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken along with Lori Hintz from Beck News. You can go to becktv.plus, follow all things Summit Carbon Solutions, proposed CO2 pipeline. This whole process is about wins and losses and wins and losses and wins and losses. And we had we had a win with South Dakota, and then I would chalk it up as a loss with the Public Service Commission here in North Dakota.
That was just this past Friday in the Judicial Wing in the Pioneer Room that the Public Service Commission held their SCS Carbon Transport LLC special meeting. What they did is they started with the approval of minutes from their March 18th meeting, and then what they did is they went in to go through all of the background and history by Randy Chrisman, the chairman of the PSC. And he went through and gave the stats and information and the timeline. And it was the 17th of October in 2022, over 2 years ago, that SCS filed originally for their certificate of corridor compatibility and route waiver. So it's been 2 long years. And after a decline last year, they reapplied, and they have now officially granted the permit to Summit Carbon Solutions for this. It was fascinating to hear the statistics about it, particularly because those of us following this story, the case number is PU-22-391 on the website for Summit Carbon Solutions for the Public Service Commission. And he told us, Randy Chrisman did, that the whole thing is comprised of 18,623 pages of information.
Pass it so we can find out what's in it.
You heard that right. No, they've read all that throughout 2 years. That's the ugly part. 18,000 pages. He said if you were to stack that on top of one another, that it would stand 6.5 feet tall, like as tall as John Gottfried. And 6.5 feet of...
No, John would still be taller.
Yeah, you're probably right. Anyway, he said it would be really, really, really tall. And he just made a lot of really interesting comments during the whole hearing. I found it fascinating to hear his story about how he himself and his family had been through an ugly eminent domain debacle in his own family. It's the first time I think he's said that ever publicly, told that story, but he made it very clear to the company that there will not be any abuse of eminent domain.
There's already been abuse of eminent domain.
That is what he said. I'm just reporting what he said. So he just said that in his case, eminent domain was to be abused in his family, to his family, against his family, and that he would highly recommend that they not use eminent domain at all. But if they did, they darn sure should not abuse it in this case.
Okay, who's going to be watching that? Because part of this is they've pretty much said, it's like, yeah, we don't care what local jurisdictions have to say when it comes to zoning. That's part of this. So who's going to have the oversight to make sure that they're doing it right if it does go through? That's my question, because
it was not
tied
clear.
The hands of the local elected officials.
Right. No, I agree. I concur. And the township is the one that actually has the ultimate say on a good thing.
It goes township, and a lot of townships default their zoning to counties, and we've got several of those that go both ways in Burleigh County.
Right.
But it comes back to local control, or we have a legislature that preaches that all the time, and here's a great example of it's just lip service. Yeah.
We're saying one thing, but necessarily in practice it's not actually.
What I've discovered is local control is local when it's convenient to the state.
It'll be really interesting to see if and when this project does actually start, digging and some shovels in the ground. What happens when there are complaints? To whom do you go as a landowner? To whom do you, be heard? How are you going to be heard? One other thing that was very interesting that Randy Chrisman said also was that he said the big details of the project include the whole project will be a $4.5 billion.
Yeah, right.
What's interesting about that is he specifically said that in testimony on the record, someone called it $5.5 billion. He said, but it is $4.5. That's $1 billion difference. How can you not have that correct in your testimony?
And the Fargo diversion was never going to be over $900 million, and that's at about 6 now.
Of
Bull.
that,
I will throw that number under the bus all day long.
Of that $4.5 billion being spent on the entire project, $898 million is the amount that will be spent in North Dakota.
So out of that number, how much of that's going to equate to our tax dollars?
Again, not noted nor talked about. The other thing that was very fascinating was that he was talking about, as you said, the county's requests for greater double and triple lengths of how close the setback is, right? So double and triple in Emmons County, 7,920 feet, and then in Burleigh County, 20 times what the regular setback would be. Therefore, the ordinances, will, however, he said the ordinances will be determined. The courts will take care of that. That's going to be something. And that was a theme throughout the meeting also. Well, we expect litigation on this. Well, we expect litigation on this too. We're comfortable with our decision, but we expect litigation.
Well, and that was the thing I heard time and time again from the public service commissioners was, we have to follow the law.
Right.
We have to follow the law. It's about the law, the legality. And I'm still not sure if it was them hedging their decision or
is it a signal to the
not having in their eyes the authority to fully cite something. There's still some stuff up in the air here.
The other up in the air stuff that was so often spoken of was the fact that the ordinances strictly apply to road use. He said that multiple times that, this is exempt from road use. Road use is outside the regular setback portion of it. That the road use is still going to be able to be determined by the individual subdivisions. So that was really interesting too. I was trying to kind of figure out what that meant. Because how many roads is this thing going to have to go under?
Well, the interesting part is, okay, where does that fall from a legal perspective on, is it ag use or not? Because when you're looking at road restrictions, the caveat on all that, if it's wet or the caveat on all that, or the frost is coming out, is agriculture, because ag comes first. If they deem this as an agriculture project, then again, you're tying up the local jurisdictions from being able to have local control. We're talking with Lori Hintz from Beck News. This is Talk of the Town. Public Service Commission ruling in favor of Summit Carbon Solutions last week. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk. Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken along with Lori Hintz from Beck News. We're at BeckTV.plus. Follow all things Summit Carbon Solutions, proposed CO2 pipeline, and Summit getting over another hurdle, being approved by the Public Service Commission. So in the ruling, language, what exactly was the ruling on Friday that said, okay, here's your project and you're permitted, go ahead?
You can see it. It is about 21 pages long. You can see it on the Public Service Commission website. Just go to the main page and it'll say Hot Topics. And at the top of that, it'll say Summit Carbon Solutions, PU 22391. You click on that link. It'll take you to the entire docket, which, by the way, has 778 individual dockets on it. Each one of those can have, 100 pages of testimony and information on each one of those separate ones. They're filings from the lawyers back and forth. And this final conclusion, they call it the finding of fact, conclusions of law and order. And then they have a preliminary statement that goes through, once again, the things that they did in the meeting. They went through the preliminary statement was the timeline and the backstory of everything that happened, the dates and all of that. So the first several pages are talking about that. Then after you get past that, then you get findings of fact. And they say SCS proposes to construct approximately 332 miles of carbon dioxide pipeline and associated facilities. That's the first time I've heard that part.
That's been added.
It is in Burley, Cass, Dickey, Emmons, Logan, McIntosh, Morton, Oliver, Richland, and Sargent counties, North Dakota. The project. The CO2 is compressed into a supercritical or dense phase state and transported through an interstate pipeline network that terminates northwest of Bismarck and Oliver and Mercer counties, where the CO2 will be injected into pore space for permanent sequestration.
So this is their final conclusion.
This is their final conclusion.
Or I like to look at it as their final solution.
The project will range in size from 4.5 to 24 inch outside diameter of carbon steel pipe with a wall thickness ranging from 0.189 inches to 0.750 inches. Pipe wall thickness categories will be calculated using 49 CFR Part 195.106. The maximum operating pressure will be 2,183 pounds per square inch gauge. The maximum operating temperature will be 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and the project will have a flow rate capacity of up to 962 million standard cubic feet per day.
Okay, so a couple things that come up to mind that I've brought up in the past. Is there anything in there that says they can't increase the pipe size? Because with the companies they keep picking up and adding to the project, 24-inch, my butt. There's nowhere they're going to get those volumes and the amount they want to sequester. Now, the other thing that comes up to mind is, and Whiting Petroleum had done this in Colorado, when you're injecting, you can create earthquakes. So I always look at what are the unintended consequences of every action that you do.
It does say that the project will range in size from 4.5 to 24 inch outside diameter of carbon steel pipe. That's what it says in the ruling of fact and their conclusion.
And how hard is it to get change in project, or we'd like to run a parallel? It's already cited for where they're going, so the corridors.
Now, the company wanted the corridor to be 300 feet, and that is the one thing that the PSC that is different. It says 32 above-ground facilities will be associated with the project, as specified and detailed on page 5 of the application and updated in docket 435, table 2.1.2. And the proposed project corridor is generally 200 feet in width, as depicted at the 200-foot siting corridor in docket 435, NDPSC aerial map book, and identified precisely by the associated GIS map data. So that was something that the Public Service Commission did that was different from what was originally requested by the company. The company wanted a 300-foot siting corridor, and the PSC said, no, it'll be 200 feet. So not really certain their thought process with that, but that was the one change that they noted when they were discussing it. The application
still comes back to me on where's the plume modeling, where's the safety concerns, and what I heard time and time again is that's not part of the siting process with the Public Service Commission. Now, my question is, why not? If you're citing something that is considered critical infrastructure, and that's the role of the Public Service Commission, then safety should be a factor of that. You're not going to run something that's dangerous through downtown Fargo and downtown Bismarck. Well, in our governor's case, he could care less about Bismarck. But you're not going to do that. You shouldn't do that. So what they were telling me then, in my mind, is, they could site it right through downtown Fargo or Bismarck if they so chose. Because the public safety is not a component of siting a line.
This is interesting, too. The application estimate, they actually put it in the document so you can see it as plain as day, too, what I talked about regarding the discrepancy between the cost of the project. The application, this is point number 7 on page 8. If you're following along and looking at home, and I know there are nerdy people who do this. Anyway, the application estimated the cost of the project at $4.5 billion. During the public hearing, James Powell testified that the estimated cost of the project is $5.5 billion. The North Dakota portion of the project is estimated at $898 million. So it's right here in that. My notes were correct. What I was reading from was my notes earlier, and this is the document.
Okay, just going back to my unintended consequences statement.
Yes.
So what is going on right now in North Dakota and across the country? There's a big push on nuclear. Mm-hmm. And I've said this forever. Why do we not have a nuclear power plant in North Dakota? The number one thing you need, and it takes about 10 years to get everything permitted, the number one thing you need is geologic stability. What this does is removes geologic stability.
Right.
Because you can create earthquakes with injection wells, especially of this scale.
So is this a race to get this in before there's a chance to have nuclear? In which case it would preclude it, or you're just asking the
legitimate question because would this preclude us from having the option of nuclear in North Dakota, which I think is a viable and is a road that we need to go down in North Dakota from an energy perspective. Mm-hmm. So, hey, we're going to put this in for the benefit of somebody out of state and screw over the state, which we're residents and taxpayers of. So for the benefit of somebody who doesn't live here, you're going to hamstring those of us that do with a viable financial option of energy production down the road.
Fair enough.
I have a problem with that.
Yeah, I can understand.
Lori Hintz with Beck News. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Don't miss a Hannity Show.
I know that there is a segment of society that would love a perpetual shutdown, and I guess we could live in a bubble, but who's going to build the bubble if everybody shuts down?
Weekday afternoons starting at 2 on Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken along with Lori Hintz from Beck News. You can go to becktv.plus, follow all things Summit Carbon Solutions, proposed and possibly getting closer CO2 pipeline, which would turn North Dakota into, some green people's
depository
garbage dump. Different discussion for a different day.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit about the strange bedfellows because Public Service Commission has disappointed a lot of landowners with this because the eminent domain side and property rights, and we saw what just happened down in South Dakota, reaffirming property rights, getting rid of bad legislation for the purpose of Summit Carbon Solutions, because after the primary and a lot of legislators that were on board and Republican legislators that were on board with Summit's project got ousted.
Do they have changes? Even their whole leadership just changed now in their legislature.
South Dakota's had an epiphany moment because the people stood up and spoke. We had a little bit of that in North Dakota,
but
too.
not to the extent that they did in South Dakota. They had hundreds and hundreds of people who would come to their rallies at the Capitol and things like that in Pierre. And we have not generated that type of interest in the state of North Dakota. We just haven't. And, hard to say why that is.
Media. I just, there's very few media sources that are following this to the level that they should.
I think they've done a lot better the further along we've gotten, but early on it was
it's
scarce.
North Dakota, we're 10 years behind anyway, right?
Some say.
So I want to talk about the strange bedfellows because, again, this is it's kind of like when Farmers Union and Farm Bureau are on board with something, dig or run,
Right.
because that never happens. And it's weird because here, one's on board with the Summit project and one's not. In South Dakota, it's opposite. And then now you've got environmental groups that typically are not aligned with the conservative landowners here in North Dakota, but they find themselves working for the same goal for different reasons, but still working with the same goal in mind.
And collaborating.
Yes.
That's the part that's just phenomenal, too. So this was a press release that came out that same exact day that this came down, which was Friday, November 15th. And so a little later that day, Dakota Resource Council, Scott Skokas, and Mark Hefflinger, who is with Bold Alliance, which is a Nebraska group, put out a press release. And it is titled, Landowners Continue Fight After North Dakota Public Service Commission approves Summit CO2 pipeline permit. The line below that says Summit still needs pipeline permits from South Dakota and Minnesota and sequestration permit in North Dakota. So this is one step, as they say in this release, of many that needs to occur.
My question quickly on this is, and there's been a lot of discussion, is like, well, do they just bypass South Dakota at this point and go through Minnesota? Or another theory I've heard too is,
what if it doesn't? What if it fails in Minnesota?
What about Nebraska?
And what about Nebraska?
Because one of the things I've also heard is, while Wyoming is a conservative energy first state, they also like the money.
Right.
And I could see a scenario where they run through Nebraska, get over to Wyoming, and come up that way. Now you're dealing with Montana as well, which isn't always as red as it should be because it's a very divided state. But because of these strange bedfellows, a lot of the blue side of Montana is the environmental groups. So that's why these alliances...
It's just so fascinating,
and
isn't
in
it?
Minnesota, there's a lot more sway with the environmental groups as well.
Exactly.
So if South Dakota's out of the picture, it's not a slam dunk going through Minnesota
And
or even coming around Wyoming and Montana.
The other thing that's interesting is if you're thinking to yourself, well, why don't they just take all of the things from North Dakota and just bury it in North Dakota? Because there's only one.
Yeah.
There's only one ethanol plant.
Wait. There's more, but...
They're all doing their own thing.
They sequester locally.
Correct, which is what we're all wondering.
Why aren't these other companies
exactly
sequestering
right.
locally?
I know.
Because they could.
You know why they're not?
But it's about the
money.
tax credits.
It's about
Follow the money.
Follow the tax credit. That's exactly right. So it's the 45Q tax credit. So this release says landowners in North Dakota impacted by Summit Carbon Solutions proposed multi-state CO2 pipeline vowed to continue fighting against eminent domain and to protect their communities after the North Dakota Public Service Commission issued a decision on Friday authorizing a permit for Summit to construct the pipeline in North Dakota. The PSC said that it is not concluding today with its decision that Summit Carbon Solutions is a common carrier, nor that they qualify for eminent domain. If Summit were to seek to enforce eminent domain seizure of a landowner's property against their will for the project, an affected landowner could ask the court to determine whether Summit qualifies as a common carrier and be empowered to use eminent domain against landowners. Now, so that tells me right there, that apparently answers part of our question. Who do they talk to? They go and take them to court, which is, as always, the most dreadful thing for landowners. So many landowners have told me that,
again, follow the money, because who gets bled dry?
Exactly.
It's the landowners with legal fees.
Exactly. So this is the troubling part about that. Quote, my first thought would be that we need to challenge the common carrier status of CO2 pipelines and restore power over zoning for pipelines to our county commissions. This is an attack on our property rights. Summit Carbon has shown my community who they are after threatening the use of eminent domain at an Emmons County Commission meeting, quote, end quote, said landowner David Mock, a farmer in Emmons County. Another quote, this is from Kevin Frederick, a Bismarck resident, quote, "The PSC has not allowed us to even understand how safe this pipeline is by hiding the plume modeling from us. If our counties can't rule on their safety and the PSC doesn't either, then no one in the state is looking out for our safety," end quote. That was from Kevin Frederick.
I'm going to put my hat on, my political hat for a second, as a Burleigh County Commissioner. Any elected body, your number one job before anything else, before cutting taxes, before making sure all the services are provided for, public safety. Public safety is number one. We don't have the tools to be able to provide public safety right now. And the problem with all of this, they don't care.
How many meetings did Summit Carbon Solutions attend?
They have not been at one under my tenure as a Burleigh County Commissioner. Not one. And I ask every time if they're there or not. And they are not, because they say that they attend all these meetings. They attend all these county commission and planning and zoning. And I have not had a representative of Summit Carbon Solutions at a single public meeting with Burleigh County.
Wow. Well, the weigh-in by Brian Jordy, who has been a complete rock star through most of this, attorney for North Dakota landowners with the North Dakota easement team, and he's with Domino Law Group, which is an Omaha-based group. He says, quote, "No surprise on the decision. We need to analyze the written decision. Like in Iowa, the courts will sort this out and ultimately decide if the PSC decision will stand or be reversed. The PSC did not determine Summit is a common carrier and did not determine if Summit is able to use eminent domain. Those questions are likely also headed to the courts. Stay tuned," according to Brian Jordy.
A lot. All right, we got more to talk about coming up after the break. Lori Hintz from Beck News. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk.
Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bach, along with Lori Hintz from Beck News. You can go to becktv.plus, follow all things Summit Carbon Solutions proposed CO2 pipeline. We're talking about the Public Service Commission's ruling last week that they can get their permit. The interesting part, of course, is they just have to follow the law, and that means they didn't have any say on, are they eminent domain?
Are they common carrier?
The first thing the common carrier, which triggers that. The first thing that pops into my mind is we've got a legislative session coming up.
Right.
And Senator Jeff Magrum was part of 8-some bills last session protecting landowner rights in North Dakota. And I'm going to guess that those are going to be coming back early. Some of them are going to be coming back very early in this session. And you are going to get an opportunity to find out exactly what legislators, who represents you from a private property perspective, and who you need to be putting their feet to the fire going, you're not in our best interest as a North Dakota resident.
Right. Yeah, it is going to be very telling, and I think people
because
should
those
really
should be a slam dunk.
Yes, they should, but they, all 8 failed last time around. So
that was the governor's office, and we're going to have a different governor's office now.
That is true. I also hope that more people will be engaged in the legislative session and probably be able to watch online. You can watch all of the hearings for the various bills and things like that. You can watch the individual hearings. You can go and participate. You can actually, there are landowners who will be testifying on it this time that probably hadn't or weren't involved last time around too. So that'll be interesting. Back to this news release with Scott Skokos of the Dakota Resource Council, and shout out to Zach Cassidy also, who's been informing the public about this like crazy. He says, this is from Scott. This is his quote, "To say this is a disappointing result would be an understatement. As Dakota Resource Council staff has been closely watching these proceedings, you can see that the Public Service Commission has done a lot to justify why they can't make public safety decisions, which is at odds with their decision from last year. The state has done a lot to take away public safety decisions from our local governments. So if they are unable to protect us and the PSC won't, who among our leaders can or will?" And that's exactly what you just said a moment ago, because...
And that comes back to they defaulted to, they expect litigation, some courts and stuff, and if you don't like it, you can go sue them and take them to the courts as a landowner. But the problem I have with that is, who do you report to first?
Right.
Because in the meantime, it takes a long time to file a lawsuit. So do you go to your local sheriff's department and go, hey, I got people trespassing on my land that are doing stuff I don't want them to be doing? Do you go to the state police? Do you go to...
I'm assuming it's the sheriff. That's what's happened previously with people, landowners. They've called the sheriff and said, listen,
Right.
Show me your paperwork at least. Show me that you have the, ability to be here legally.
That's a tough position to put a local sheriff department in.
It is.
It is. Because at the end of the day, the local sheriff department works for who? They're county employees.
Right.
But if through these decisions, the county doesn't have jurisdiction on the permitting, the zoning, or anything, because they're trying to hamstring the counties and local control, then it's not a long step. It's a half a step to go, your sheriff's department doesn't have jurisdiction here either.
Right.
That is worrisome.
It is. Well, we shall, we shall definitely see. I have one more quote to share with you, and that is from Emma Schmidt, Pipeline Fighters Director for Bold Alliance out of Nebraska. And her quote is, quote, with an alarming 200 parcels now facing condemnation, the depravity of Summit's project continues to grow. It's disappointing to see the commission attempt to legitimize this greed-fueled land grab. Summit's shameless disregard for the lives and liberties of North Dakotans only reinforces the need to continue challenging this unsound project at every possible turn, according to Emma Schmidt. And despite receiving the permit in North Dakota, as we mentioned, Summit still has to get pipeline permits in South Dakota. They, of course, rejected their previous application. And then Minnesota, as well as the permit for the sequestration site in North Dakota, that's the Industrial Commission that takes care of that. It's a whole different body. And again, that's going to change because, again, we'll have a different governor as well. And meanwhile, the South Dakota Supreme Court ruled recently that Summit has not proven CO2 is a commodity or that it qualifies as a, quote, common carrier that should be granted eminent domain authority. So that's going on in South Dakota. They're in a legal fight there as well. 2 Iowa counties sued by Summit will be in federal court this week now, defending ordinances that they passed in oral arguments before the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, impacted Iowa landowners with the Iowa easement team also filed an amicus brief in support of the counties, which, if victorious, could impact Summit's permit issued by the Iowa Utilities Commission as well. So they are in no way shovel ready at this point as a company.
Remember how fast they were trying to get this through?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, I remember thinking, wow, they're really shoving this through quickly.
Yeah, and the project goes back long before that. And in some of my research, 2006
wow,
was some of this sequestration.
The groundwork was laid at that point.
Now, one of the things that caught my ear there when you were reading those quotes was being referred to as a land grab. So you're eminent domaining private property, which you're controlling that space of land through that process. But the other thing that you go back and take a look at previous legislation in North Dakota, and we've talked about this before, is the 2 pieces of legislation that passed in North Dakota very quietly that disallowed the separation of pore space from surface rights.
Right.
And any sequestration project at its termination or completion, then it reverts back to the state.
How does the
State
governor-elect?
ownership.
How does Governor-elect Armstrong feel about that
I haven't
issue?
had a conversation with him on that.
Because
but
it seems to me that he was the one who was really trying to protect people's rights with regard to space below the surface, seems to me. So it'll be very curious.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens.
That's
now,
a sea change with leadership change
well,
there.
and tell you what, do you have time for one more segment?
I do. I can make it really quick.
Because I want to hold you over for one more segment because I want to talk about what the Department of Interior and Energy have to do with the Trump administration coming in and having potential new secretaries and what that looks like. And, of course, Governor Burgum being tapped as an interior secretary. I was hoping he was going to get HUD because I don't think he could have done much damage there.
No.
But I do like the energy secretary.
We'll talk about that too.
We'll talk about that when we come back. I'm Steve Bakken along with Lori Hintz from Beck News. You can go to becktv.plus. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Talk of the Town, weekday mornings starting at 9 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app. News Talk Bismarck Mandan, Super Talk 1270.
Portions of the following program are pre-recorded.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken along with Lori Hintz from Beck News. You can go to becktv.plus, follow all things Southern Carbon Solutions proposed CO2 pipeline. And Lori, I want to talk about the bigger perspective because we've talked about Public Service Commission, what's going on in North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, other states.
By the way, Illinois has a proposed bill that would place a 2-year moratorium on injection in response to their ADM leak there, too. So Illinois is getting involved and getting ahead of it and saying, you know what, no more of this. This is dangerous for our people. So that's cool.
Public safety.
So Trump tapped North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum to lead the Interior Department and gave him some special duties as well as part of almost like an energy czar.
Explain the energy czar
I don't
piece.
get
that
it.
goes,
Don't ask me.
Isn't that what the energy secretary is for?
Don't
I
ask
like that.
I am only basing this on observation, but it appears that this is a reward for not getting the VP spot. That's what it just looks like. And
okay, but what's the energy czar?
I don't know. I don't know either. I don't understand that.
The only role that Burgum should have in energy when it comes to the
it's
Department of
like,
the Interior
what he wanted
is opening up BLM lands for drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
That should be it.
Agreed.
And I don't know how you put an energy czar because Doug doesn't know a lot about energy.
So this is an article from WAPO, from Washington Post, that came out the day before the decision by the PSC, so the 14th, which was on Thursday. And
by the way, I have a point for an interesting dichotomy we'll talk about after you read that.
Okay, dichotomy, noted. All right, so President-elect Donald Trump announced Thursday, the day before that PSC announcement, that he would nominate North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum to lead the Interior Department, a role overseeing roughly 500 million acres of federal land and more than 1 billion acres offshore that will be key to his plan to boost U.S. oil and gas production.
Again, North Dakota's soon-to-be former governor who got in the way of all those bills that would have protected landowner rights. So
is now in charge of 500 million acres.
Land. Yeah, he's in charge of land.
So this is according to the Washington Post. After Trump asked oil industry executives to help steer $1 billion toward his campaign. So this is, again, it's you helped me do this.
Favor.
You helped me do this, so we're going to reward you for your loyalty. Burgum talked extensively with oil donors and CEOs as he helped lead the campaign's development of its energy policy. Also, at a fundraiser in Palm Beach in May, Burgum told donors that Trump would halt President Joe Biden's attack on fossil fuels, according to a recording of his remarks obtained by the Washington Post. Some Burgum allies had initially pushed for Trump to appoint the North Dakota governor as an energy czar that coordinated energy policy across multiple agencies, which he basically has. He doesn't really call him an energy czar, but he's giving him a position as the chairman of a new energy committee of sorts.
I view that as overreach. I mean, you've got qualified people. Trump has put qualified people everywhere should they get through the nomination process. But now you're going to give the globalist Doug Burgum overreach into you can get his fingers into other departments. I don't understand that, because we're going to come back to who has been tapped to be the energy secretary in a second.
Okay, so I'm just going to finish this up and just skip to the end. Let's see. The pipeline would be used to ship and store greenhouse gases that are tapped trapped during fossil fuel production and stored underground. Oil companies see big financial opportunity in such technologies that curb their production's climate impact. But others around Trump, particularly those who question mainstream climate science, are pushing to erase all the Biden-era clean energy subsidies on the grounds that they cost taxpayers money and undercut Trump's vision for vastly expanding drilling.
That's my other question then. Why is all this necessary? Trump got us out of all that crap. The global green energy scam. He got us out of that.
Once.
He got us out of all those climate accords, all the things that put China and Russia and those countries in the driver's seat when it came to energy production. That cannot be part of the portfolio if we're going to take energy production back in this country and be the world leader that we were before again. So that's interesting. Now, here's the dichotomy, and we'll talk about the energy secretary in a second, but the dichotomy is you've got the Washington Post talking about this, and now you've got the New York Times, and we know where they are diametrically opposed.
Right.
And they're starting to do a deep dive into Burgum.
Right.
And, okay, wait a minute. Again, strange bedfellows.
Very strange. It is so odd. And you add to the dynamic DOGE, D-O-G-E, the Department of Governmental Efficiency, which will be headed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Well, Vivek Ramaswamy is the individual who was all over the CO2 pipelines when he was running for president and in Iowa.
And Robert Kennedy Jr.
And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as well has mentioned it, too. So you've got people in the administration.
And I'm hoping they're going to have Trump's ear more than Burgum will.
Right? I mean, it'll be really interesting to see, won't it? It seems to me that his general push has been against this hoax. The climate hoax is what he and his administration have called the climate change debacle. And this is going to be so interesting. Ramaswamy says the Supreme Court gave us a mandate to deregulate, and he's going to go there and they're going to deregulate. And if they were to, for instance, if they were to cut the 45Q IRA credits that were added there, the Inflation Quote Reduction Act, it seems to me that would fly in the face of everything that Summit Carbon Solutions is doing. And wouldn't they be worried right now? I mean, the timing of this is also interesting, that they just get the permit in North Dakota, and then meanwhile Donald Trump will take office on January 20th at 12 noon, and then all of a sudden he's going to be off and running with all these things. They only got 2 months to get anything done, really, before it all potentially could go away.
Looking forward to that. All right, Energy Secretary.
Yes.
And
you know more about him than I do.
Somebody I know very well. I've had opportunities to speak with him, MC events with him. Chris Wright, CEO of Liberty Energy. And Liberty has been one of those companies that has been on the forefront of doing traditional energy work correctly. They changed. They were the first ones that went from an oil company, and Jason Spies and I talk about this all the time, went from being an oil company to an energy company, and getting into the relationship between energy and agriculture and how everything's intertwined. Chris Wright has been very outspoken on that's wrong, this is right, and we need to get back to what we actually do as a country and as companies to make sure that the United States is the best, strongest production platform for all energy.
This sounds good to me. I'm excited to hear that.
I am so excited about Chris Wright being the energy secretary.
Excellent.
Because if you go back and I'll tell everybody, go back and follow him on LinkedIn, follow some of his posts, some of his speaking engagements, go do your homework on him. He is going to be the right guy in the right place at the right time for U.S. energy production on all levels, legitimate production, and not the scam side of it.
This is exciting.
I am very excited about Chris Wright being the energy secretary.
That's encouraging. I did not know his name right off the bat, but I found it interesting that it was kind of buried. They buried the lead a little bit over the weekend. The big thing was on Thursday with Burgum, and then Friday him being announced, and then it was kind of like hidden. The energy secretary came out later.
Liberty's got a big footprint in North Dakota, so those that are working in the industry know exactly who Chris Wright is and what he stands for and what he can do.
Terrific.
And I am very excited about Chris Wright being the energy secretary.
Well, that is very encouraging. I'm so glad to hear that, especially in the number 3 energy state. So,
Lori, always a
oil
pleasure,
state.
my friend. Lori Hintz
Yes.
over at Beck News. You can go to Beck.TV Plus. Why did I screw that up now?
That's right. You were
I don't
close.
know. Beck TV Plus.
BeckTV.plus. You had it. BeckTV.plus.
Best of the best. Go check them out.
Thanks so much.
This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk.
Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken along with Sherry Hogan Hoffert, and you might know her better as Public Service Commission here in North Dakota. She's one of the commissioners, but she also has another hat she wears. Well, she's got a lot of different hats. In fact, she brought me a hat, which is kind of nice too. But she does wear a lot of hats, and one of the things that Christmas time means is the wreaths out at the Veterans Cemetery. That's one of those big events that, if you haven't been part of it, always a good time to go out there and pay a little homage to our veterans and really have a deep meaning of what that means. And in the past, I know families get together. It's part of their Christmas rituals and their protocols that they do over Christmas. It's like kids come back from college. It's like, okay, well, that's what we do as a family. That's one of the events. But you guys have run into a little bit of a shortfall this time around. Always had a great turnout, great support. Always had a little bit of a reserve in the past that's been able to manage this. But as our veteran cemetery has grown, now we are at the point where we have to replace some wreaths, and they cost money and they're getting more expensive, just like everything else has.
That's correct, Steve. Generally, going into this time of the year, our reserves have been pretty good, but we do fundraising every single year. We look for sponsorships for a wreath, but this year we're down some. We're down more, so we're really...
Costs go up and support either stays the same or maybe lags a little bit, and that means there's a problem.
That's correct. Our wreaths did go up last year. They're $17 a piece. We have to place our order by December 1st, and they get trucked in, all the wreaths, and it is our goal to have a wreath purchase for every headstone out at the Veterans Cemetery.
So what does that mean for listeners out there? How many wreaths do you guys put on the headstones?
Right now, we need 9,000 wreaths. And I don't know the exact amount where we're at, but I would say we need to raise money to cover every headstone right now out at the Veterans Cemetery. So I'm going to put the goal out there. We need to raise money to cover 9,000 headstones out there and wreaths.
One of the cool things, too, because we have veterans from across the state that are out at the Veterans Cemetery. And, you know, when you have a loved one that is entombed somewhere other than the hometown, and that means somebody has to kind of take care of them. And I have talked to more families that have come and visited during this time because they are so happy to see that what the community, the Bismarck Mandan community does with wreaths across America, making sure that every one of those headstones has a wreath. It's just a phenomenal sight.
It is. And on December 14th will be the program on placing the wreath. First, there's a program, and every branch is represented. And then family members or friends, whoever donated a wreath for a specific headstone, there's an opportunity for those who have purchased a wreath to first go out there and place the wreath on their loved ones. We do a call out to a lot of volunteers that day because it takes a lot of people, and the volunteerism is just outstanding. And then after the families or those that have purchased a wreath for a designated headstone, then the rest of the volunteers go out and we make sure a wreath is placed at every headstone. And in order for us to do it, for every headstone, we do count on donations. And again, each wreath is $17.
So I want to give it a little shout out to the volunteers, because this doesn't happen without the volunteers. And whether it's somebody going online, we'll talk about that in a minute, and giving a monetary donation, volunteerism, helping out. But you've got a lot of families, a lot of service organizations and service groups. And of course, the Civil Air Patrol really does an amazing job orchestrating all of this.
That's correct. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to the Civil Air Patrol that organizes this. They do all the logistics on opening up the donations, keeping us informed, ordering the wreaths, having horse trailers there where the wreaths are. So strategically, throughout the Veteran Cemetery, there will be horse trailers set up where volunteers can go and get the wreaths. And we've had in the past a lot of snow. So people have been out there shoveling snow away from the headstones so family members can see where their loved ones are at. And for us volunteers who are placing wreaths, they are placed strategically in an orderly fashion on each headstone. And I've seen organizations, individuals, Boy Scout troops out there. We are so thankful for all the volunteers that come out and support Wreaths Across America on placing those wreaths.
So do you have any sway with the weather this year? Because I've been out there when it's been freezing rain and heavy snow and freezing cold and T-shirts. So a little bit of everything. So,
One of the hats I have, Steve, does not control the weather. Like you, I've been out there like a nice fall day, and there are other days the only thing that you could see is the white of my eyes. And this is where I'll also say the Civil Air Patrol does good monitoring of weather, and safety is always first. One of the things with the event on December 14th, we asked people to carpool because parking is not in abundant. So if you could carpool, bring your whole family out there, bring your neighbor, your friends, whoever, come on out and help support placing of the wreaths on December 14th at 11 a.m.
How do people volunteer if they want to give their time? And we'll get into the financial aspect here in a second. But if somebody wants to volunteer placing wreaths or helping, if we got a lot of snow, cleaning some of that stuff off, how do they do that? Because
they show up.
Just show up.
They show up that day by 11. The program's going to start at 11. So again, grab a car full of friends, family, come out, carpool, but be out at the North Dakota Veterans Cemetery by 11 a.m. Participate in the program and then the placing of the wreaths.
All right, now, like we said, the cost of the wreaths have gone up, just like everything else has gone up lately. And that's put you guys in a little bit of a financial strain to make sure that every veteran is covered with a wreath. Every veteran's headstone out there has a wreath on it. So what's the process if somebody wants to donate the $17 for a wreath, or they have somebody in particular they want to make sure a wreath is taken care of? How do you go through that process?
Well, there's two ways. First of all, you can send a check and you send it to, so I'm just going to pause, go get a pen and piece of paper. Wreaths Across America, care of Bismarck Civil Air Patrol, P.O. Box 2104, Bismarck, North Dakota 58502. The one thing I'm going to say, emphasize, do not call the North Dakota Veterans Cemetery for information or dropping checks off there. There's two ways to sponsor, either by mail or online. It's PayPal. And I'm going to give you a website to go, and it's pretty easy to follow, but there are steps. It's nd030.cap. That's C as in cat, A as in apple, P as in Paul.gov. And that's going to bring you to the website, and there's going to be how to sponsor a wreath, but you're going to go down to PayPal and go on to there. And please note, you don't need an account. You can sign on as a guest. And on that site, you're going to have, it's going to be the Bismarck location. You can identify if you want to give to a certain person. And then it's going to be how many wreaths do you want to sponsor? And you're going to give a credit card number. But please note, you could sign on as a guest and sponsor a wreath through PayPal.
Sherry, thanks for coming in. nd030.cap.gov.
That's correct.
Perfect. Hey, if you can help out, great way to give back this Christmas season, especially back to the veterans. And thank you to you and the Civil Air Patrol for doing a great job with Wreaths Across America and out at our Veterans Cemetery, making sure every veteran out there has a wreath on their headstone. Once again, that website, nd030.cap.gov. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
To Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270, you're tuned to Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Bakken, Pam Thompson joining us in the studio. And Pam, gobble, gobble, gobble. It is that time of the year again, turkey trot.
It is. It's turkey trot time, even though it's like 50 degrees outside and...
Shh.
Right.
Don't jinx it.
It could stay.
Don't jinx it. I know some snow in the forecast, but that's up north.
Oh, we're not
it could be
worried
nice
about
over
it.
here. Because I've done turkey trot anywhere from 50 degrees to, well, it seemed like 50 below. Probably 50 below with the wind chill. Actually, this is the first one I did.
That was,
It's
I
like
think it was like 40 below or
full
something
beard
ridiculous.
and frosty. Is like, yeah, I was trying to impress my now wife, girlfriend at the
worked.
time. And yeah, it's, yeah, things we do for love, Pam.
Right.
Anyway, so apparently it did work. So, so she makes me. So we'll be there again this year.
Excellent.
Always
Glad to
there.
have
I'll
you.
be walking the dog. She'll be running, but I'll be walking the dogs. Okay, turkey trot again. What? Gosh, how long now?
It's the 35th year.
35th year.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's almost as old as me.
Almost, give or take.
Yeah.
In dog years. It's part of a Thanksgiving institution now, though.
It's a tradition for so many people here in the Bismarck Mandan area. And we have people that come home to the turkey trot every year and look forward to it. It's a family thing.
You know, the cool thing with turkey trot, too, is and we should probably say who you're with and
Yeah.
what the turkey trot
Sure.
supports, because we're talking about turkey trot memories.
Right. We're with the Cystic Fibrosis Association of North Dakota. So the turkey trot is our biggest fundraiser every year, raising really crucial funds to help our friends with cystic fibrosis.
And then where do those funds go? Because it's support for individuals with cystic fibrosis. There's the research side.
Yep.
There's so many different
Yep.
facets to help out those with cystic.
Yep,
with
we do
CF.
the really practical grassroots help for people living with cystic fibrosis. The money stays right here in North Dakota, and we help people. We pay for travel to doctor's appointments. We only have 2 CF clinics in North Dakota, one in Bismarck and one in Fargo. So if you live in Williston, you're on the road to get
A
to your
lot.
doctor's appointments. So we help to pay for some of those travel expenses. We pay for some really expensive medications that have changed lives. They've really extended the life expectancy to where someone born with CF today can expect a normal lifespan.
Okay, I'm going to be a little frank here because 35 years ago, that wasn't the case.
No.
You were diagnosed with CF, somebody born with cystic fibrosis. That was a death sentence.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a question of, well, how long can we extend their life before we know they're going to pass away? And then that's changed into, okay, we can get some pretty good outcomes. And then it was the improvements on the quality of that life.
Right.
And now people can lead pretty much normal lives with that diagnosis. And
Yes.
that's just over 35 years.
Yeah. I've been with the association for 12 years, and I've seen so much improvement just in those 12 years.
It's unbelievable.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
right.
Expensive, but amazing.
Yeah, very expensive, but amazing. So making strides, hopefully someday.
We're so
it's-
close to a cure.
I wouldn't say full cure yet, but we're close.
We're very close.
And now let's talk a little about the turkey trot,
Yeah.
because for 35 years, it's grown from, okay, what a great event to help support a great cause, to, okay, we're going to go, hey, going back home for Thanksgiving, let's go do the turkey trot. It's something to do. And we're supporting a great cause. Now it's just family tradition. It's part of Thanksgiving.
It's part of
you
Thanksgiving.
You cannot, in the Bismarck, Mandan, Lincoln area, say Thanksgiving without thinking turkey trot.
Right.
It is such an intrinsic part of the fabric of this community. And as a director, that's got to make you feel really good, knowing that
Super
people
good.
have bought in and want to participate, and it has become a part of their family tradition because it's not individuals, it's family showing up.
And everyone has a smile on their face. It's cold. Let's not
Well, actually, the smile may not move depending on the year.
it might be frozen
is.
there, but everyone's happy. Whenever I look at pictures of the turkey trot, like people are running and smiling, which I can't picture because I'm not a runner. But I guess you could.
Well,
be
they're
happy
dressed up
while
as
you're running.
turkeys and drumsticks and
pumpkin pie, and you get an extra slice of pie. You earn it. You earn an extra slice of
Absolutely.
pie if you do the turkey trot.
Well, see, that's what I always
Permission
try to
granted.
say, and Wendy doesn't want to let me get the extra slice of pie.
Oh, tell
anyway.
her. Tell her I said
Like,
so.
even a la mode? I mean, it's like trying to draw the line at the ice
It's
cream.
a vegetable.
Yes, it is. Pumpkin is a vegetable. Or there's, of course, apple pie, too.
It's fruit.
Yeah, it's fruit. I love the way
5 a
you
day.
think. Slice of pie a day keeps it. Yeah, okay. All right, so what do people need to know? We got some deadlines coming up as far as getting the T-shirts and everything. You've kind of pushed that back because another big component now is even if you can't make it back to Bismarck for the turkey trot, you can virtually participate.
We have a virtual option, so you can sign up as a virtual runner, and we will send you your T-shirt and a cute little race bib, and you can run on your own time. I won't even check. You could not run. It's up to you. It's you and your conscience.
You just set the bib on the treadmill and then start the treadmill and you can walk away, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's always an option. All of our registration is online now, and you can register right up until 9 o'clock on race day.
So races start because there's a bunch of different categories now. That's kind of grown too.
Well, it's fewer categories this year.
You scaled back?
Well, we had to. There's this little thing called the rail bridge.
Oh,
and the construction.
I was going to ask you about the construction component, changing the route.
Right. So the route is the same, but we are shortening. We are not having a 10K this year.
Okay.
But
if you want to do the
possibly next
5K
year.
twice, feel free.
Feel free. I can't imagine wanting to do 2 5Ks, but you could.
There's a lot of people that do.
But the turnaround for the 5K appears to be okay because that's right at Frayne Barracks there. But the 10K was in jeopardy.
Little bridge construction. And,
little bridge construction.
So do
We
2
couldn't
5Ks.
guarantee.
You're just as...
So that simplifies things a bit in that we're just going to have one start. We've done staggered starts before. Everyone starts at 9:15. If you're super fast, start in the front. If you've got dogs or a stroller or you're a walker, start in the back.
One of the things I noticed last year, too, is a lot of people may not have been on the proper pathway for if you're walking with dogs or you're jogging or it's kind of a recreational route.
Right.
Because I noticed a lot of the 10K people that were coming back before I made the first turn.
Right.
There was a lot of congestion, so people were getting in the way. So can't stress enough, stay on the right route. Get there a little bit early, look at the map, because there's some people that they're taking it seriously.
Very
They're running.
seriously. Yeah, our executive director got run over a couple years ago because he was starting the race and didn't get out of the way in time.
Wasn't me. I get way over the side with the dogs. I'm like,
yes. So we have an untimed fun walk, and that walks through Sertoma Park, and that's on you. You can turn around when you wish, and that's kind of off the roads.
You're looking at me when
else.
you're saying that, by the way, because it's.
Well, I mean, I believe you are. I mean, I could look it up, but I think you're registered
I'm
for
a
the
fun walk person. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wendy was going to register, so I don't know
I'll
if she did
look.
yet.
But the family fun walk, that stays in the park.
Tell you what, hold on a second. I want to come back next segment and talk a little bit about the different
Sounds
components
good.
and what it looks like going. Where do people register?
CFAND.org.
Perfect. We're talking with Pam with the Cystic Fibrosis Association. Turkey Trot coming up. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Talk 1270.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270. We're talking with Pam Thompson from the Cystic Fibrosis Association. And, okay, what's the website? I want to get that out of the way right away because we can't stress enough. Get registered for the Turkey Trot.
Yes. It's at cfand.org. There will be a pop-up that comes up that says register for the Turkey Trot. That's how you get there.
All right. Always bigger and better. This year, there's a little bit of a kind of like COVID, you made it through, and that was the virtual side.
Right.
With how do we keep this going? And you guys innovated out of it. This year, there's some construction that's going to be in the way with the rail bridge construction. So part of River Road's going to be closed, which means the 10K. Now, if you want to do the 5K twice and still knock out the 10K,
Right.
feel free. But the 10K is not going to be offered this year.
It's on hold, and we were a little sad about it. But we've talked to runners, and they mostly said no. We'll just run a 5K. That's
It'll be back
fine.
next year, right?
It'll be well.
If they're done
We
with the
don't
bridge.
know. Yeah, it's up to the railroad.
If they're open and
Yep.
bigger
The
than
cool
better.
thing is the rail bridge is on our shirts this year.
Oh, very cool.
So I
The new one or the old one?
the old one. I know, right?
Well, see, when you're back fully, you'll have to have a picture of the new one on there.
Right.
So people can get back-to-back T-shirts.
Right, and you don't want to miss out.
No. So one of the things I noticed last year was people, a little congestion. Mm-hmm. A lot of the 10K people, which take off and they're coming back, and they wound up trying to navigate around on the roadway of people that were going out on either the 5K or the little fun walk, or they weren't staying over to the left.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not in England, folks. But
Right.
people were over the whole road, and that kind of got in the way of some of the faster runners.
Right.
And I think I noticed that probably before I made the first turn. They were coming back. It's crazy how fast people run that. So what have you done to kind of navigate around that a little bit?
We have 3 different categories this year. One is the family fun walk, and that is totally untimed. You won't have a race bib. That's how you'll know. If you aren't given a race bib with a timing chip, that starts and ends in Sertoma Park.
Stay in the park.
Stay in the park.
So don't even go on the road.
Nope.
Stay in the park.
Yep. And that's the perfect for a lot of families. Just love that. They don't need a time. They don't need to be competitive, but they want to be out and participate in the
You're
turkey
looking at me
trot.
when you're saying that. Yeah. It's
you
like,
know.
take the dogs. I'm going
Take
for a
the
little
dogs,
walk.
go
It's
for a walk.
Going for a great cause.
Yeah,
I'm there.
someone brought a goat one year. I think that's super fun. So,
Walking a goat.
I know.
That's
Well,
interesting.
Probably behaving better than my kids.
Well,
but, you
quite
know.
possible. So anyway, that's one thing that people need to realize. If
Yep.
you're just doing the fun walk, stay in the park, stay off the road, because there's a lot of runners that take it
Right.
very serious.
Very seriously.
And then as far as people just getting out with the 5K, try to stay over to the left side going out
Right.
and the left
Like
side
driving
coming
a car.
back in.
Yep.
So just like driving a
Yep.
car, because the road's going to be closed.
Yep.
People will be there. No 10K this year because of the bridge construction, but
But
kind of
we're still going to have,
kinda
we
rules of the
still
road, though.
already have, I want to say, over 900 timed runners signed up already. So there's going to be a lot of you. So we always ask, the people who are going to be running the 5K versus walking it, because there's a race walk as well. Walkers stay to the back, let the runners in the front. And if you have baby strollers or dogs or any of those things, you're welcome to do those on the timed race if you want to. But stay back.
stay on the left side,
And
stay in the
stay on the
back
left
a little
side.
bit. Let the runners,
Yeah.
because I always stay in the back now. That's
Oh,
kinda,
I would have to be.
I
in
hang
the
out
back.
with the cool kids back there.
They're very cool in the back.
It's kind of like riding the bus back in grade school. Cool kids. We were always in the back. Okay, so we've got the recreational run, just the little fun walk.
Yep, family fun walk.
Family, stay in the park for that. If you're going to be doing the 5K, let those folks up front, and then just
And then
they're
there's a
coming
5K
back.
race walk, and you would start in the back. They're going to both start at the same time, at 9:15. So it'll be one start time. I know we've done staggered in the past.
Yeah. And going out, don't take up the whole road.
No, yeah, please.
Because that I noticed that last year, and because I was taking a nice casual leisurely stroll from the far left side or the walking trail, and I
because
was
those
like,
fast 5K runners will be turning around before you know it.
like, well,
Because
maybe before the first turn.
we're talking like
They're fast.
15 minutes
Yeah,
for,
and they take
like-
it seriously.
yeah.
And you know what? Good for them.
yeah.
But that was something I noticed last year that people need to be really aware of. Don't take up the whole road going out. Just
Yep.
you got half a road. So You always have some fun stuff going on in the Elks because
Yeah.
the Elks are so wonderful.
They
helping
love
to support.
having us there, and we love to have people come into the Elks. We'll have a photo booth in there, so you can take before and after pictures if you wanted to. That's free for everyone to use.
See, I used to do that when I used to actually have to run it
Right.
before Wendy married me, and
Yeah.
I actually had to impress her a little bit, and it was like the level of dishevelment was really good as a comparison. I was like, wow, that's me before the run, and that's, who's that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fun picture to take.
We'll have file orthodontics.
Especially that first
They
year with all
bring-
the beard frozen,
the frozen
ice
beards
crystal.
are the best. I'm hoping for no frozen beards this year, but
fun.
it could happen.
Could happen.
We never
all right,
know.
So all the stuff inside.
Yep.
Because
So-
people go in and get a water, a banana, relax a little bit, recover a little bit.
Right.
Check out their times because everything's right there right away.
Yes, and those will all be streamed online as well. You can get them right to your phone. I believe they also get emailed to you, but I don't know. Don't hold me to that. But
Well, it depends on how you sign up for it.
yeah,
But that's also part of the virtual because
Mm-hmm.
the people that may not be at the race themselves
Mm-hmm.
that want to do the virtual side, then that's how they get their time and their
Yep.
information as well.
so it's all really very slick and very cool. We have a lot of fun, lots of family pictures. I love to see them all online afterwards. It's really fun.
And really going to a great cause. You know,
Yes.
over the last 35 years since it's been going on, the quality of life and then the improvement on treatment and what it means to somebody who's been diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, and all that money stays right here locally.
Right here in North Dakota, which is wonderful, and it really goes directly to people who need it. The Cystic Fibrosis Foundation does a great job on the research end of things. They do things we cannot do, but we do things that the
That they
foundation
can't do either.
And that's offering direct aid to people living with cystic fibrosis. So I think we're making a difference, and I think our people would say that we are as well.
So a lot of great community sponsors and community
Yeah.
partners with this as well. So you can see all them in the booths inside. So I
Mm-hmm.
really encourage people to go inside after the race. Just don't show up and then take
Yeah.
off. Go in and
It's fun.
spend a few minutes.
We're
it's
hoping
worth it.
we're working on having a coffee truck out in the parking lot. You can buy a coffee. There's just
And the
lots
Elks
of
always
things.
is a great host and
They're
do a little
such
something
a
as
great
well.
host, and I just really enjoy. I'm so thankful for what they do, and I know what part of their mission is to help kids, and we're kind of just a really good.
Pam, once again, the website, somebody wants to get signed up. Now, you
Yep.
can sign up until 9 o'clock the
Up
day
until
of the
9
race.
o'clock the day of the race.
Deadline as far as if you want to get your T-shirt and things ahead of time because
At this
you
point,
do have a
it's
hard-
first come, first serve. And
Okay.
and what's nice is the inventory is real time. So as you sign up, if it says that there's a shirt size available, it's available. So if you don't see a size small, it means we're sold out of size small.
And once again, the website to get signed up.
CFAND.org.
Turkey Trot coming up right around the corner. It is here faster than we all think. Coming up Thursday, the 28th. Make sure you get signed up for Turkey Trot. Pam, always a pleasure.
Yes, great. Thanks for having me.
Hopefully the weather holds. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Talk of the Town. Weekday mornings starting at 9 on Super Talk 1270 and the free Super Talk 1270 mobile app.